Sabres game night tonight as Buffalo hosts Pittsburgh. Pregame coming up at 6 for a 7 p.m. puck drop for this evening. We do know Jason Zucker is out due to a family matter, and all signs are pointing to James Reimer getting the start in net. And then some more hockey news. Earlier this morning, Philadelphia Flyers announced a coaching change. John Tortorella has been fired. Brad Shaw is set to serve as the interim. And for Tortorella, he falls just short of 3 full seasons in charge of Philly. He did miss the playoffs. It would appear to be in all 3 seasons. Of course, this season not wrapped up just yet. To baseball, it is opening day for Major League Baseball. The Cubs and Dodgers did technically get the season started underway with the Tokyo series earlier this month, but for the majority of the league, it begins today, and we do get underway. The Yankees hosting the Brewers. First pitch just a few minutes away. Same with the Blue Jays as they host Baltimore. And then in just about an hour, the Mets are down in Atlanta to take on the Braves. That game's going to get going again at about 4 o'clock. The Bison season not starting today. It's going to get underway tomorrow when they host Rochester at 2, though we will get more on the Bisons when the voice of the Bisons, Pat Malacaro, joins the show in just about an hour and a half at 4:30. Over to the Bills. They are following in the Chiefs' footsteps from last year. As Hallmark announced today, they are teaming up with the NFL and the Bills for a new holiday movie coming out this year. And then college basketball gets going again today. 4 games tonight in the Sweet 16. BYU versus Alabama just after 7 o'clock. Duke versus Arizona just after 9:30. You can hear those games over on the Bet 1520 following the completion of UB women's round of 16 game against Southern Indiana in the NIT. And then the other 2 games this evening, Maryland versus Florida at 7:30 and Arkansas versus Texas Tech just after 10. And coverage of the NCAA Championship Tournament on WGR and the Bet 1520 is brought to you by Window Nation. For all the window needs, visit windownation.com. That's your Paddock Chevrolet Sports Update. Paddock Chevrolet celebrating 90 years of business. I'm Zach Jones for WGR Sports Radio 550.
It's Mike Schopp and the Bulldog.
Hammered in the air, deep to left field, history, number 300 for Aaron Judge.
It's Mike Schopp.
He hits a fly ball, right center. Yastrzemski has it, and Blake Snell has pitched the first no-hitter of his brilliant career.
And the Bulldog.
Swing and a ball drilled, right field, Freeling back, at the wall, out of here, it's out of here. Alonso, an opposite field home run, and the Mets have the lead.
It's Mike Schopp and the Bulldog.
How can you not be romantic about baseball?
On WGR Sports Radio 550.
All right, sure. 3 o'clock, that's first pitch, or 3:07 or 3:0 something for Yankees Brewers throughout the record books. Actually, the show will never have sounded older, but they're pretty much our record book records between or worse, the show will never have sounded worse, between the Brewers and the Yankees from when the Brewers were in the American League. And then also Toronto and Baltimore coming up. Mets are in Houston. Let's go. Where was the 1 o'clock Mets game? I will, I'm 53. Like, I'm real about it. I'm not so much the guy that says every baseball season has to start in Cincinnati or America, even. Like, Cincinnati was always opening day. Today reminded me of that, in that you could never watch that game until, I don't know, the late 90s or something. Maybe they would have ESPN would be in Cincinnati for that, season opener. But when I was younger, before that, you could never watch whoever the Reds were playing in that game. But the Mets, the Mets are opening day. They always win. They have some crazy record on 77%, some crazy record on opening day. So where's that 1 o'clock Mets game? That's what I go back to when I get nostalgic about baseball and this day, is coming home from school and WOR Channel 9, the Mets and somebody from Shea. They were always at home, and they always won. Kind of good. Pleasantville. So where was that 1 o'clock Mets game? Today, we've had the righteous complaint about day 2 of the baseball schedule, because what they do on day 2 is they basically just have no afternoon games. Tomorrow there is one, I mean, here is where you really do have to throw out the record books. 4:10, Colorado at Tampa. One afternoon game tomorrow. It's Friday. Everybody else plays at night, for their fans. I understand why these things happen, but greater good. Where's the 1 o'clock Mets game? Where's the 1 o'clock anybody? Yankees, Blue Jays, they could have moved their games up, but they go at 3. 2 games today at 3, 9 at 4. What we need is baseball to have more, at least for the first day of the season, games at 1 and fewer at 4. And we need football all the time to have more games at 4 and fewer at 1. Better for the fans. I would like to offer you, this is a great offer, right? I would like to offer you the chance to call me with who your favorite team is and why. I get questions when baseball comes up, whether it's ADP chasing or different podcasts I do, people just sort of run by it sometimes. It's that time of year, the start of the season. What is baseball fandom in Buffalo? And I thought about it this morning. I think I've been saying the same thing forever, which is, the Yankees. Why? Because of DiMaggio. I don't know. Your dad, your grandpa, there are Yankee roots back from times when we couldn't watch anybody play, at least more than once a week. So I've been answering that question the same way forever, but times have changed, and it might be different now who your favorite. Zach is an Angels fan because his dad had a meal with one of the players.
Yep.
I mean, is that out there? You are a fan of a team because you are connected to a player in some way. Who was the player? It was a pitcher.
He was an outfielder. I'm going to have to text him now. I always forget the player. But yeah, so because of a meal, I'm connected to 2 of the longest playoff droughts in American sports. So I love that. 10 years for the Angels, and we're now past a decade with the Sabres.
Oh, the Sabres are the same story?
No, but I mean, Buffalo, I'm a Sabres fan.
Okay, right, sure. I thought maybe there was somebody met Alish Kodalik or something a long time ago. Yeah, okay. So, Angels, boom, 1. My college roommate was an Angels fan. He grew up in Amherst. I don't remember why. It wasn't Naked Gun. He was an Angels fan. All right. I was a White Sox fan for a year, and they were good. Probably not a coincidence they were good. It was 1983, and they won the American League West by 20 games. But the reason I was a fan was there was a girl I liked. So I would have been 11. I don't know. I wasn't a late bloomer in every department. There was a girl I liked at 11. And I had a baseball sticker book with 8 or 10 guys on each team. You buy the stickers at, Mesmer's was our store on Grand Island. Ride your bike to Mesmer's, buy some stickers, and, try to collect the whole set. I think they still have these. And her birthday was the same day as one of the White Sox players. So I decided, you know what? I'm into the White Sox. This is my favorite player now. I like her. I like him. That's how that went. I mean, it didn't... That's about as far as it went. But I was into the White Sox in 1983. It was a great year. Maybe the only good year to be really into the White Sox, or one of the very few. My path is, I've been a few places when it comes to baseball teams. I've had more favorite baseball teams than girlfriends. I think I could safely say that. My mom is from Southern Ohio, so I was first taught, groomed to root for the Reds. So my first game would have been in Cincinnati, not an opener, but we went to games, every other summer or so in Cincinnati for a few years. My interest in the Reds went away when the Mets entered my life. The Mets just moved in. There they were on TV every game. Fun team, good and strawberries, the mid-'80s. They're the only bad guy team I ever liked in sports. If I could go back, I would change that. I would have liked the Raiders. I would have liked the teams that were kind of like the evil Empire teams as a kid, because I just sort of fell for the movie script of it all. You're not supposed to like them. You're supposed to like these guys. So the Mets, I mean, it probably was because that didn't really, I think, come around until after I was into them and watching all their games. Then by 86, they were hated, but that didn't affect me. So Reds to White Sox that was very brief. It is like relationships, actually. It was Reds without a home team. It was like that. Reds to White Sox to Mets and Blue Jays together. I talked about this with Mike Wilner on Tuesday, longtime Blue Jays reporter, how the Mets and it was like the Sabres and the Leafs for me growing up. Had access to both teams on TV, went to Sabres games, watched Leaf games, went to a couple. It was like almost the same to me. And it really was kind of the same. I liked them both, and they were never in each other's way. They were usually never both good at the same time. They were in different conferences. The Mets and the Blue Jays, different leagues, never a reason why you couldn't like them both. In my mind, that's how that was. So this you can't do with relationships. Anyway, Reds, White Sox, Blue Jays, and Mets together. And then college, post-college, the Met thing waned. I mean, they were kind of a joke in those years in the mid-'90s. They were absolutely a joke in those years, like Vince Coleman and Saberhagen and Bonilla. Like I hated those Mets teams. I was out. So didn't really feel like I had any need or sense of loyalty when it came to this. They weren't my first love. They were not. It didn't last. Out on the Mets. Then it was really like whoever could beat the Yankees. I did have that Jeter, Rivera, Torrey Yankees dynasty run where I just always wanted them to lose. Just always wanted them to lose. Anytime. Then the Mets got to the series, the Subway Series against the Yankees. I was right back on the Mets. That didn't work out. Anyway, so here we go again. Reds, White Sox, Blue Jays, and Mets. Anybody but the Yankees. And then Cleveland. Met my wife. We got into the Bisons and the then Indians. It was Sizemore and Brandon Phillips and Peralta and Sabathia. Victor Martinez. How good was he? All those guys coming up through Buffalo, up to Cleveland, American League Championship. We were crushed when they lost. Went to games in Cleveland. Went to Bison games. That was intense. That was like not quite the Sabres. This is 05, 06. Not quite the Sabres, but that was intense. And that died because all those guys left and it wasn't the same anymore. And then I would say that's 20 years ago, since it would only be the only team I really ever got into emotionally since then would be the Bautista Blue Jays. I loved that. Donaldson, Reyes, David Price, Bautista, Tulowitzki, Russell Martin. I loved that team. And that felt great. As you get older, a lot of this stuff, I think, slips away from you naturally. It's more about business. For me, it's actually a career. So it's not always like the same kind of childhood enthusiasm for go team. But when it happens that you really get into one, that feels really good. And that happened for me with the Jays. The Jays, 2025, I can't imagine any other team doing that for me again but Toronto. I think if Toronto got close, I would get into that. I'm just sort of waiting for it. It is a little bit like the Sabres for me, although not as profound. It is a little bit like that. Just sort of waiting for a reason to believe in it. And then, so maybe that makes me a bandwagon fan. I don't know. I'm definitely not watching all their games when they're 70 and 92. But if they got good, that's what happened with the Bautista teams. I got there. So I'm curious for yours. Who is your team and why is it your team? Is it about a girl? Is it about your dad having lunch? Is it about where you were born? Is it about, your first stadium experience? Bulldog was, plainly not here. You're watching, you're listening. Where is he? He's still in Puerto Rico, as far as I know. He's Boston. And for him, it was the ballpark. He saw a game on TV, even in their stadium, and then it was Yastrzemski and Ted Williams, and he fell for the lore of the Red Sox. And I like that. There's no wrong reason. There's no bad reason for liking a team, I think. You test me. But that was Chris's, that it was, I think, about Fenway. 803-0550 for your calls. I'm curious to see just how much diversity there might be, not to say you can't tell me about your favorite team being, one of the more popular ones, but I kind of wonder if Buffalo is maybe more diverse in this way than it used to be. And we'll get to your calls here right now. We'll have Pat Malacaro on. Speaking of opening day in baseball, the Bisons open tomorrow. That'll be next hour. We've got the Sabres home to Pittsburgh tonight. I definitely want to talk some more football, NFL draft, some more dig stuff with his signing in New England. And so we will bounce around. But I really just genuinely am curious for, our listeners, fans, sports fans, who your favorite team is as another season starts and why. Here's Joe on WGR. Hi, Joe.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
Sure, you're welcome.
Hey, buddy, I'm a Cincinnati Reds fan. I'm with you there. And my reason is the Ken Griffey days. I kind of followed the player, and he's the exact reason why I dislike the Yankees.
Griffey Jr.?
Yeah, Griffey Jr. Yeah, well, the dad, too, at the beginning.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And
we had Barry Larkin, and then we had Adam Dunn, Austin Kearns.
So was Griffey your favorite before the Reds were, or the other way around?
Griffey was at first, but when he was with the Mariners, I was too young. I'm 36, so I was kind of still just a fan of baseball before. But then once it became the Reds, I kind of just stuck to the Reds,
Okay, sure.
All that history and everything like that. So
I get it. Did you ever see him? Did you ever see him play?
Yes, once.
Me too. Once.
Down there back when it was at the riverfront. Yeah.
Okay, good.
Full stadium, and I was a team.
Thanks, Joe. I saw Griffey as a Red in a famous game, kind of a famous game against Cleveland. We were on a baseball trip. This would have been 05 or 06. I never remember which. And in this game, Cleveland got way ahead, and the Reds beat them on a walk-off grand slam, either 8-7 or 9-8 by Adam Dunn. I mean, to see a game where somebody hits a walk-off grand slam to win by one run, that felt pretty cool. On a Friday night, Cleveland-Cincinnati in Cincinnati, and Griffey was on that Reds team. Thanks again, Joe. Here's James next. Hi, James.
Hey, thanks for taking my call.
You're welcome.
For me, it's the Yankees. I was 12 years old, 1977. Mr. October, Reggie Jackson, 3 home runs in the World Series.
That would do it.
That was it.
That would do it. I think, that somewhere between 9 or 10 and 12 years old is kind of when you decide, or it chooses you.
Yeah, I was just watching the World Series just to watch, as I remember. As a kid, I'm a sports fanatic, so we were just watching it, and he did that, and I've been a Yankees fan ever since.
All right. Makes sense. Thanks, James.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. 3 home runs on 3 swings. Try that. Try that at home. They always say don't try that at home. I think you should. Try that at home. Try 3 home runs on 3 swings. Even your kids pitching. Just try to 3 swings. 3 just perfect barrel contact 3 times in a row. Try that. Reggie did it in the World Series. I think I watched the 78 World Series, not 77. I would not have seen that at I was 5. I would not have seen that. I did watch a little bit in 78. I remember caring about that. And then 79 with the Orioles and the Pirates. Imagine a World Series between the Orioles and the Pirates. But there were 2 in that decade. And 79, I was into that. And I think I wanted the Pirates, but I don't know. I'm a little kid. Forgive me for not remembering. Here is Jordan next. Hi, Jordan.
Hey, Mike. How you doing? First-time caller.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I would say I'm an Atlanta Braves fan. I was born in 1985, and I grew up in a household with my dad, and my dad was a big Braves fan. Funny story, actually. He actually liked the Reds, too. He grew up liking the Reds, and I guess he was a little kid. He put in, I want to say a cereal box or something for a Reds T-shirt or something, and he never got it. And so I guess it crushed his spirit and his heart. So my dad went from being a Reds fan and jumped off that bandwagon, and he started liking the Braves and liking Hank Aaron.
Hank Aaron. Wow.
Yeah, so my dad loved, he's probably in his early 70s. So my dad was a big Hank Aaron guy. And so I grew up, here I am, 1985. And I grew up, in the 90s, and basically it's TBS, right? It's TBS.
Right.
It's Smoltz and Maddox and Glavine and you name it. And that's the team that I grew up for. Chipper Jones is my all-time favorite Brave of all time. I actually have never seen a game in Atlanta. I mean, that's definitely one on my bucket list to go there and hopefully take my dad there one day. But we've seen them in Toronto. We've seen them in Cleveland. We've seen them in Pittsburgh. So we've seen them quite a bit, a few other places. Still like them a lot right now. I was devastated when Freddie Freeman left the Braves.
So was he.
Freddie Freeman?
So was he. Remember he went to L.A. and he was all upset that he made that decision?
Oh, man. Like, watching that team, my dad and I were so happy when they won the World Series a couple years ago, obviously. They kind of felt like the Bills for a little bit in the 90s, right? They're winning all these championships, and they're getting to the World Series, and they just can't win. Obviously, they beat your Indians. I'm sorry.
It's okay. I didn't care about them then.
And then
I didn't like them at all.
Yeah,
95.
So it was great for them to get that next one a couple years ago. That was fun. Good memories with my dad there.
Here, Jordan, if I may, so TBS. I should have mentioned the Braves in my opening because in my teenage years, and baseball was almost like the most important thing in my life.
Yeah,
I would get home and they would play at 5:30 or 5.
It was awesome.
It was awesome, and to have cable, we would just get cable right around then in those mid 80s, and you'd get home and there are the Braves, and they were awful. I loved Murphy. They were awful, but it was still so cool to have live baseball on in your house at 5:30. I mean, who does that? But I think it was 5:30. But that was the Braves.
That sounds right. I feel like growing up too, sometimes having an early dinner and then maybe going downstairs, or maybe having a little tray table set up and having dinner in front of the TV and watching with my dad, watching with my brother, watching the Braves, and so some really good memories. And I'm excited for them this year. Hopefully they can get healthy. But definitely hard seeing some of the guys, Swanson and Freeman, and now Max Fried with the Yankees.
Yeah, that's how that goes.
I know, it's kind of weird seeing some of these guys leave.
Sure, I understand. Thanks, Jordan, for calling. I bet I'm mentioning how I wonder just if favorite team within Buffalo is more diverse than it used to be, because why wouldn't it be? I mean, the Braves thing happened. It, like we talked about, it started with it being available. And now, everything is available. So if you loved Ichiro, right? Whoever was the best player, Mike Trout, somebody that in previous generations you would never see. Somebody for me, that would be Tony Gwynn, or even going back farther, almost never see, maybe in an all-star game. You might see them once a year. Now, you can, if you can afford it, you can watch any team every day. And so if you loved Ichiro, or you loved Mike Trout, or you loved whoever, Ohtani, those teams could be your favorite team because of that. Depending on your work schedule, maybe you work late, you get home, you're up for 10 o'clock games, and you get down the West Coast, and you're watching those teams every day. I have a friend who is a Mariners fan, and I think his story is something like that, where it was just available, and it hadn't ever been available. So wouldn't that tell you, if loyalty is a thing, and if you grow up with the Yankees, your mom or dad rooted for them, then maybe you always will. But I never rooted for teams or athletes my dad liked. I always, as a rule, go the other way. He's Borg, so I'm McEnroe, right? So if he was not into team sports really, but if he loved the Yankees, I know I would not have. Nothing against him. Love him. But I would not have picked the same team as him, because that would have been, I just wouldn't have. That's just me. I think maybe more fans here that like baseball are into just way more teams. The Rockies are a good test for this. If you're into the Rockies, that's tough. But still, I think that might be right. And those Braves years, watching them on TBS, were really fun. They were never good, but it was great to have that. Just, you might not even be able to appreciate how awesome it was to go from, if you're a baseball fan as a kid, Saturday afternoons at 2, that's what you get, one game a week, to, wow, every night. Braves at 5:30, Mets at 7, Yankees at 7, whatever. It was just mind-blowing. All right. Your favorite team and why? 803-0550. Won't do this all day. Want to get to some football. Definitely the Sabres tonight, too, so we'll move around. But I like this for now. Mike Schopp here. Bulldog is off today. This is WGR.
Here's a 2-0. That is ripped into right. Back at the wall. See ya! Home run! What a start. Yankees on top 1-0.
Joe Buck back in our lives. There he is on ESPN today, opening day, Yankees Brewers. Austin Wells talked about this last couple of days briefly. A catcher batting leadoff for the Yankees, but that's what we've got. He gets on base, and first time up this year, he got on all of them. Leadoff home run. 1-0, Yankees in the second. Toronto hosting Baltimore, yet to start. Ceremony. If they had a ceremony planned for 3 o'clock or 3:07, why would they have listed first pitch at 3:07 and not, like, it's 3:32? You could have just told us. It doesn't sound like it right now, but I love that it's all starting. 803-0550 with baseball starting today, mostly. Kind of the real opening day. Hate to have to qualify that every time, but I need you to know that I am aware there were 2 games last week in Tokyo. Your favorite team and why? I wonder if it's more diverse than it used to be, if it's the Yankees or the Red Sox or the Mets or the Blue Jays, and it is, but some of you already have called in with interesting backstories. Let's go to Norm here. Hi, Norm.
Hey, how are you, Mike? Good to talk to you, buddy.
Same, thanks.
So my story is probably not unlike yours or anybody else's, but came from a working-class family in Buffalo. We drove very early on a Saturday morning to Boston. Didn't know I was going to see opening day and see the Boston team. And then we drove after that matinee game on a Saturday to see a matinee game in Cleveland to watch my first Indians game. Very, very exciting back then. And as I got a little bit older, we used to spend the springtime in Sarasota Siesta Key at the Ed Smith Stadium and watch the Chicago White Sox. And seeing Bo Jackson and Michael Jordan right there, 20, 30, 40 feet away. And, wow, what a team back then.
Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Never thought about that. But, yeah, I guess he would have been there.
Going a few years back.
So which team stuck with you?
The Cleveland Indians, for sure.
Okay.
Working class team. However, sitting underneath the Citgo sign in Boston for the most amazing Philly cheesesteaks on the planet, food versus team, probably they don't go hand in hand, but I think they do.
Very good. Thanks, Norm. I follow a woman on Twitter named Lucy Burge. She was with Bet when it was BetQL and then BetMGM. I don't think she is any longer. But one of her things, she finds accounts like minor league baseball or just sports team accounts where they have some new food item. I got to get this for you. I responded to her. I've never met her. We did a podcast together once, but that's it. She just responds with like would or would not. Would you eat this? And this one today, the Hartford, this is offensive to me. Most of these are just like, how the Sabres do it, the dog of the day. It's a foot-long hot dog with like some other popular, with a Reuben sandwich on top of it or something like that. Like, all right. What you're getting is basically, you're getting 2 things that you like. You're getting Travis Hunter. You're getting a hot dog and you're getting a Reuben. Okay, well, they're combined, whatever. I can live with that. The Hartford Yard Goats, which apparently is a team. The Yard Goats unveil the Float Your Goat. And I saw this through Lucy. A 1/4-pound all-beef hot dog with chopped peppers, onions, bacon, and brown mustard. Fine, good. Submerged in a glass of goat milk. No.
You lost me on that.
No.
Yeah. Oh.
No. I can't even look at it. Feel free to try it. Feel free to try to look at it. I mean, I don't even care if it's goat milk or milk. No, don't take, mustard is on this thing. Don't take my hot dog and just drown it in milk. I can't think of a worse idea. I'd rather it be bourbon or something, give it a little bit of a kick. Milk. No, she said she would eat it, but that's a no for me dog. Literally. Here is Ray next. Hi, Ray.
Hey, Mike. First of all, I got to thank you for frightening me every time I go near a tennis tennis can, soup can, vegetable can. I always think about you slicing yourself, and I don't want it happening.
Oh, wow.
To me I think it was from your high school days.
That happened to me once. That's right.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Well, it stuck with me. So thank you.
Okay.
My story. I'm right behind you in age. I'm 51, and growing up before cable, you had your choice of WPIX, WOR, and maybe I don't know. Was it CTV sometimes for the Blue Jays?
Sure. Yes.
And so as far as like when you're growing up, I mean, at that age, whatever, 9, 10, I don't know the history of these teams. So it was based on the broadcast. I couldn't stand WOR, and I don't know, maybe because CTV was Canada. So by default, it was the Yankees. Then as you get older, you start to know the history. And I loved Mattingly. He was my favorite player. Winfield, Randolph, those guys. It was just after Bucky Dent, so I wasn't really too aware of that. But it was the darn broadcast that got me into the Yankees. I didn't have a father that watched baseball. It's just that's the way it was.
I can appreciate that. I mean, I loved the Met broadcast with Kiner, who was just a mess.
I liked McCarver.
Yeah, me too. McCarver. Yeah, me too.
But I had no idea Kiner was a player. I didn't know he was a good. As a 9-year-old, I don't know.
Right.
Started off fresh at a clean slate at that point.
You also, and by the way, I think of the broadcast for this too. You also had the Expos on CBC on Saturday nights, and
yeah.
That was Dave Van Horn, who might be still working, and Duke Snyder.
Yes. Oh, very good.
Yeah.
And thank you for turning me on to the Immaculate Grid. I love playing that too.
Thanks, Ray. Yeah, cool. The broadcast means a lot. Tony Kubek would do the Blue Jay games in at least some of those years. Yeah, that could mean a lot. Let's go to Greg next. Hi, Greg.
Hi, Mike. Enjoy the topic. I started off as a Cleveland fan simply because I was my first Little League team was the Indians, so that led me to Cleveland. And then I think I switched because Dad took us to watch an actual Cleveland game. But
and that scared you straight.
Yeah, but that was right about the time that Pete Rose came into the league, and I just took him to heart as an idol, and always felt that if I played smarter and harder and with more heart than anybody else, I could have more success than maybe my talent would have brought me to. And that came to fruition. But the diversity part of it really comes in with our family. My dad was a White Sox fan because he was a minor league player in the White Sox organization for a period of time.
All right.
They then got a place down in St. Petersburg, and my mother became a Tampa Bay Rays fan. I was the Reds. My brother played for the Tigers in Little League when he was a teenager, and that's right about the time the '68 Tigers won the World Series. So he's a Tigers fan.
Mm-hmm.
And my son is a Red Sox fan because none of us like the Yankees and want to jump on that big bandwagon that everybody seemed to jump on.
The Little League piece I hadn't thought of, but I bet that's a popular reason for kids aligning with teams.
Absolutely. It's your first real member as a team, and you adopt it.
Yeah. And thank you, Greg. I appreciate your call. That I think has changed. I don't know, this might vary town to town, but when I played Little League baseball, we didn't have like logos. We had colors. So the first year I was the Pirates because we had yellow. The second year I was the Royals because we had royal blue. The Red Sox, but we never had like a Royals hat. We had a hat that said GI on it. It was always, I think now, like when my kids were on an Expos team and their hat was the Expos. Like that's way better. That would have maybe helped shape where I was going. But by the time I started playing baseball, I already was like, I knew all the players and the stats, and like I was all set. I think by like 6 years old, I was that kid. Not bragging, but it made for a complicated, at times challenging childhood. We have Austin Wells and then later Anthony Volpe homering for the Yankees in their opener against Milwaukee. So 2-0. I think it's weird to see a Yankee game and the pitcher has a beard. I'm not sure, like it sort of struck me first that it was weird, or that I just know that for the first time ever, the Yankees are allowing facial hair like below the lips. So here's Carlos Rodon. It's not the best beard you've ever seen. It's more like a second-round NHL playoff series playoff beard, but it's a beard, and that I've never seen before. Yankees were allowed mustaches, but never beards until this year. They buckled. They buckled to the pressure. Here's Tony next. Hi, Tony.
Mike, I was much more excited for this phone call until you told me about those 2 Yankee home runs with Freddie Peralta starting for me in one of my leagues today.
Sorry.
I it's okay. It's long season. Baseball could not possibly be more in the air for me. I'm headed to a practice right now at a venue you're familiar with from we've run into each other there in the fall. So between that and tracking the fantasy portfolio, not comparable to your football one, but enough for me anyways. I'm pretty amped about a day like today for sure. I was a Yankees guy, Mike. It was the grandparents for me, and that lasted from early childhood. Where I would put the Yankees right there with the Bills and Sabres as far as how I lived and died by, those teams. I can still remember them going into exhibition for a 3-game series to end the season in '85. They needed all 3. Might have got the first one before Butch Weiniger flew out in the second game of that series. And, you either won the division or that was it.
The good old days.
Yeah, who knows? But for me, it's when. Well, I mean, I think I like a few more teams. It's probably watered down now, but I do like the wild cards. Where it switched on the Yanks for me was when guys like Tino and Scott Brocious became Giambi and A-Rod.
Okay,
and I am so grateful to have found fantasy baseball because I've shifted from a team to just my absolute love of players and probably even a broader spectrum of love for the game by being, as doggone passionate about it as you and many of your listeners are, around football time. So that's where the fire stays lit for me. And, hopefully others out there. I love, going into deep drafts with local guys because, it's hard to find each other sometimes.
Right. Yeah, right. Very good. Thank you, Tony. I don't want to say that fantasy gets a bad rap because millions of people play it and are even obsessed with it. It's a little bit much to sort of go straw man, but once in a while I'll hear somebody say like, who cares? I'm not reading you my roster anyway. I just think it's a way of talking about the game, whatever the sport is, that I think you can relate to, and it's fun for a lot of people, even specifically in that context. But what it did for me, football or baseball too, when I stopped really caring about teams, is it allowed for me to learn who everybody was to a greater extent, and I wanted that. And I didn't even really know that I wanted that. But I'm in a few baseball leagues, only one for money. Only one. No portfolio, just one for money. I'm looking. That's what's on my computer screen though right now. There it is. That I enjoyed getting back connected with the sport, and that's how it made sense to me. That's what I wanted. That's what it did for me. So yeah, that fantasy does play that role, and that's true for any sport, I suppose. Very good. By the way, Tony and Ray, Yankees fans from the 80s, don't let Sal fool you. Don't let anybody fool you. The winningest team in the decade of the 1980s was the Yankees. Yankee fans tend to tell you that they were bad. They won more games in the 80s than any other franchise. Maybe that's bad when you're winning back-to-back in the 70s and you're winning 4 out of 5 in the 90s. Sure, I get it. It wasn't championships. And, that's how we do it. But the Yankees won more games in the 80s than any other team. Okay. This has been fun. Let's keep going. Do you have you might have a favorite team. Why is it your favorite team? What's the story? 803-0550. We'll have Pat Malacaro on to commemorate the start of the Bison season tomorrow, talk about how they line up and what to look forward to. And then Sal at 5, Paul at 6 for the pregame show, the Sabres hosting Pittsburgh. Bulldog is off. This is Mike Schopp on WGR.
More of Schopp
Excited for opening day in the majors, or the real opening day in the majors. They never make it easy. You just can't say that because it isn't quite correct. Today's great. Games in the Bronx and Toronto are underway. Adley Rutschman, a home run for the Orioles in the top of the first, leading the Blue Jays 1-0. Mike Schopp here. Bulldog is off. Watch out for Tyler O'Neill in that game for Baltimore. He has homered. This is pretty good. He has homered in 5 straight opening day games. St. Louis and then Boston. Now he's on the Orioles. Because everybody has to play for everybody. The Sabres home to Pittsburgh tonight. Josh Norris, his official, quote, official injury by the Sabres PR game night sheet has been changed to middle body from undisclosed. I thought it was weird weird that it said undisclosed. Like, who isn't disclosing? Norris hasn't told the Sabres, or like what? Why is this different than the usually vague descriptions hockey gives you? Why is this one more important to keep secret? Maybe it has to do with what he had before they traded for him. That would make sense to me. I mean, it isn't great. So they've changed that to middle body, whatever that is. It's not shoulder, right? You can't get away with middle body if it's a shoulder injury, I think. Sidney Crosby in town. His 62nd career game against the Sabres. It feels more like 500 to me. 61 games for Crosby against Buffalo. 29 goals, 56 assists. So one more would give him 30 goals all-time against the Sabres. They've never met in the playoffs, believe it or not. The Penguins, I mean, he's faced so many franchises in the playoffs and several times. Rangers, Ottawa, never against Buffalo, never Florida, never Toronto in the playoffs. And this is likely to be 3 years, I imagine, this is likely to be 3 years in a row for the Penguins to miss the playoffs. Pittsburgh at Buffalo, pregame tonight at 6. Alexander Ovechkin scored. He is now 5 away from Gretzky. 5 to tie, 6 to win. And tonight, Washington plays in Minnesota. Not easy to score on Minnesota. And their next game after tonight is against the Sabres in Washington on Sunday. So not likely that the Sabres will be, the team where he ties or breaks the record. He needs 5 goals in his next 2 games for that, one being the game against the Sabres on Sunday. They do have Washington 9 games after that one, though. So 5 goals to tie, 6 to break the record out of 11. Still a pretty good pace. That's about, a 40-goal pace? But it is Ovechkin, and it's close. It could happen. Caller mentioned Hank Aaron earlier. That's the thought I had the other day, where Hank Aaron, before my time, barely, but when he was approaching Babe Ruth's home run record, very similar to this in terms of just like importance in the sport, unbreakable record, right? And just like this is really happening. That's Ovechkin and Gretzky. And Aaron got within 1. I think it was 1, maybe 2, but I think it was 1 by the end of the 73 season. 1 short. So I imagine, reporters and everybody were trailing him around, the Braves, but 1 short. Then I think on opening day in 74, he hit 1 in Cincinnati, and then, or right around the beginning of the season, and then against the Dodgers just a few days later is when he broke that record. All right. I want to get back to the baseball thing. It was fun. Who is your favorite team and why? Is it family related, where you were born? Is it random? Is it because of who you played Little League baseball representing? Anything. We heard some really fun, differing kind of backstories in the first hour. I encourage you to join me with yours. 803-0550. Guests at 4:30 and 5. Pregame at 6. Mike Schopp here on WGR.
Buffalo Sabres game night tonight in Buffalo as they host Pittsburgh. Pregame coming up at 6 o'clock for a 7 p.m. puck drop. Tonight, we do know Jason Zucker is out of the lineup due to a family matter, and all signs are pointing to James Reimer gaining the start in net. But some other hockey news today. Philadelphia, they announced a coaching change. John Tortorella being fired, and Brad Shaw set to serve as the team's interim. Tortorella falls just short of 3 full seasons in Philadelphia and was set to miss playoffs in all 3 seasons. In baseball, opening day is off and running. 14 games are going to get played today. The Yankees currently are up 2-1 against Milwaukee in the third. Austin Wells and Anthony Volpe with the home runs. Toronto down 1-0 in the second against Baltimore. And then starting here in just a few minutes, Atlanta is going to host the New York Mets. The Bison season's not going to get underway again until tomorrow when they host Rochester at 2. We'll get more on the Bisons when the voice of the Bisons, Pat Malacaro, joins the show in just about a half hour at 4:30. And then college basketball gets going again tonight. 4 games in the Sweet 16. BYU versus Alabama just after 7. Duke versus Arizona just after 9:30. They can both be heard over on the Bet 1520 following the completion of the UB women's round of 16 game against Southern Indiana in the NIT. The other 2 games tonight are Maryland versus Florida at 7:30. Then Arkansas versus Texas Tech just after 10. And coverage of the NCAA Championship Tournament on WGR and the Bet 1520 is brought to you by Window Nation. For all your window needs, visit windownation.com. That's Paddock Chevrolet Sports Update. Paddock Chevrolet celebrating 90 years of business. I'm Zach Jones for WGR Sports Radio 550.
Mike Schopp and the Bulldog.
The Tampa Bay Rays, they're defunct.
They don't exist anymore?
They don't exist anymore. I just
the
decided
Red Sox?
Today we should make a call and let them know, but I just decided they're out. I would rather watch the guy, the painting guy. Who's the painting guy?
Bob Ross.
I'd rather watch Bob Ross than watch my favorite baseball team play in Tampa.
It's Mike Schopp and the Bulldog.
What a matchup. It is bracket season. What a matchup. Your favorite team playing a game in Tampa or Bob Ross painting a lake and a mountain.
Give me the lake all day long.
On WGR Sports Radio 550.
This year, of course, I say of course, maybe you didn't know, the Rays are playing in a different stadium. Bulldog has a Tropicana field problem. Maybe a lot of people do. This year, the Rays have moved to the Yankees spring training facility in Tampa. The other place is in St. Pete, by the way, because of damage done during a storm to the regular stadium. So they've moved to an outdoor facility this year that is, I think, I heard, shaped like Yankee Stadium. That's what teams are doing now. Like the Red Sox spring training ballpark has a green monster. Like it's the exact dimensions. So that should mean the Rays should be able to hit home runs to right field like the Yankees. Looks so easy. I mean, I probably could do it. I mean, it's so impressive to. Never mind. the home run that Wells hit in the first inning today for the Yankees landed in the first row. There's not a home run in any other stadium. It still counts. So not bitter. Just saying the Rays have moved. That's all. And I don't understand Bulldogs. Bob Ross to use that as the kind of it's this bad. It's so unsatisfying to watch a game in Tampa that I'd rather watch this guy paint. I'd love to watch that guy paint. People love that. You could pick a lot worse shows. There are a lot of shows he would not, when tested, I believe, watch over a Rays game against the Red Sox. I'm pretty sure. That's just talk. 803-0550 for your calls. Opening day. Got some more time here if you want to share your story for why your favorite baseball team is your favorite baseball team. Opening day today. I went over mine earlier. It took an hour, basically, for me to go through all of my different favorite teams over the years. Right now, I'm not attached. Like I said, though, Toronto is the only team I could see myself getting back into. I'll never get into the Mets again. The Met thing was the combination of getting home from school, like middle school, high school, they're on TV, and they're good and fun. That was the recipe. That was the formula. And that's a pretty tough one to resist. Good, available at a time when most, live sports were not available. Just happened to be close enough to the market. It was on local cable. So that plus, Gooden, Strawberry, Hernandez, Carter, all of it. We had a guy before, I didn't mention it to him because he went into a few different places. Remember the guy from the first hour who said how his dad liked the Reds, but gave up on the Reds when he signed up for a free T-shirt or something and he didn't get it? And it's like, that's it. I've mentioned this before. I doubt you remember or care, but this is my wife with Gary Carter. She was a Met fan as a kid, just like I was, and just coincidentally, she didn't grow up in Western New York, but was a Met fan and wrote a letter to Gary Carter asking for an autograph, and she never got a response, and thus she hated and hates Gary Carter. I'm like, we had this conversation. She and I had a conversation about this like 2 weeks ago. Like, he's dead. Can you just let go? It's probably not even something he did maliciously. It's just like either piles of letters or maybe somebody dropped the ball on the staff. Maybe you gave him the wrong address. I don't know. Like, it could have just been circumstance. You didn't get the autograph. Like, nope. Refuses to not hate Gary Carter. That's right there on her bio. If she had a bio, that's what it would say. Refuses to stop hating the late Gary Carter. 803-0550 for your calls. Here's Jack next. Hi, Jack.
Hey, Mike, great story. I like that one about your wife. That's actually fun.
Yes. But she's not the type to just hate somebody forever and never let. She's not the type to do that. But in terms of Gary Carter, it's never going away.
Anyway, I'm calling about Chicago Cubs. In the 80s, I was from Buffalo and everything else. I went to Chicago. I was there for the mid-80s. I was there. I went to Wrigley Field many times. Probably how Bulldog felt about Fenway. But really what it came down to was the fans. The fans were heartbroken year after year. Lovable losers, right? And I could always relate that with the Bills and the Sabres. And when the Cubs finally won, of course, took 100 years. Hopefully we don't have to wait that long here in Buffalo.
We're on our way.
But yeah, it was a really amazing time. I was there when the lights were just put on in Wrigley. There was a lot of controversy when they put lights on. You had Harry Carey. I was there during Dawson and Sandberg era, and it was great baseball.
It really is a special place to go. I've been there 4 times maybe, and every time it's really just amazing that it exists where it does, and just the joy in the crowd, and the people who are, so many of the fans there on a given day will be like just sort of experiencing it maybe for the first or one of the first few times, and
the neighborhood bars and everything. It's really cool. I actually, one story I'll just add to it. It was like one of my friend's fathers was a big Cubs fan. He was from Chicago, and I was there in '86 where they lost a playoff run with the Padres, and there used to be a bar called Cubby Beer, which I visit quite often. And the guy offered me a bottle of champagne. I'm like, why would I want a bottle of champagne? He goes, well, the Cubs lost. We're just giving these bottles. They couldn't open up in the locker room. So I brought it to my friend. I brought it to my friend's dad, and we made a pact. This is in the 80s, right?
Yep.
So I told him, I said, let's make a deal. The Cubs ever get to the World Series, we'll open that bottle of champagne. And that's what happened. When they played the Indians, the gentleman called me out of the blue, said he still had my bottle of champagne. We were hanging out in his living room. We opened it. It was the worst smelling champagne you ever could. It was like vinegar through his whole house.
Yeah. I wasn't sure. If it's whiskey, it's going to taste great. But if it's
champagne.
If it's wine, it's not going to taste great. That's right. Wow. The champagne, did you say the champagne was like slated to go to the clubhouse if they won? And oh, wow.
Yeah, since they lost, what the Cubs did is they just gave those bottles to the local bars outside Wrigleyville. And they were just whatever. They just gave them away or whatever they did with them. But they couldn't open them because they were losers, like they were all the time. So
yeah.
But it was great to see that they finally won for one time in their life. And I'm like I say, I've called you many times about the Bills and Sabres.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just hoping one time before our life, same thing like a lot of people call your show.
Yeah, yeah. Jack, this is really good. I like the story a lot. Thank you. Wow, 1984. So 84, they're up 2-0 in the best-of-5 playoffs to the Padres, and they lose all 3 in San Diego. And they gave away all the champagne. That's interesting. That's cool. You know it can't last, though. Like, A simple internet search will tell you it's going to be bad. Like, you can't drink it. It sounds more than like whiskey or something. It sounds more like the gum in the pack of cards. Like, you open a pack of cards from the 80s, it's not going to be, the gum is not going to be good. But, I get the sentiment. I have a bottle. So I guess my grandfather, who died before I was born, had a little bit of a liquor collection, and my father, just kept it, but hardly ever opened anything. And then one day, 10 years, I built a bar, and around that time, he gave me all the booze. Like, here's all the booze. We don't touch it. Take it. And some of that stuff is really weird. We've opened a couple things. No champagne, no chance. There's no wine involved here. But there's a bottle of Canadian Club with the label says 1967 on the front, on the label. And when I got this, I'm watching Mad Men at the time. And Mad Men, they're always drinking, Canadian Club. Don Draper would have had this bottle on his desk in the show. And so I just looked it up. Like, what is this going to taste like? If I open this 1967 aged Canadian Club whiskey, is it, like, drinkable? And it's like, apparently, yes. Apparently it tastes the same. Maybe better, but it's not ruined. Does that just last forever? Apparently it'll taste good. I still have never opened it. I've had it for a decade now. I've got it. I know right where it is in my house. I love the label on it. It's almost like when I was collecting cards, like an old card. Like, this is from then, 1967 Canadian Club champagne, though. Yeah, I'm not surprised that didn't work out. Here's Joe next. Hi, Joe.
Hey, how you doing?
Good.
Well, I want to tell you how I became a Philadelphia Phillies fan.
Okay.
Grew up in New York. My mom is from Philadelphia. My dad didn't like sports. My grandfather made me a Philadelphia Phillies fan in the 1970s.
Mm-hmm.
So, it was really weird, living in Rome, New York, actually, at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Being a Philadelphia fan with all the Yankees and Mets and everyone over would always ask me as a kid, how are you a Phillies fan? I'm like, Mom. Was a Philly,
Mom's
and
fault.
Grandpa said, you're a Philly fan.
That's very similar to my story with the Reds. My dad was not interested. My mom's from near Cincinnati, and so it was the Reds. Very similar.
So it was very hard to get Philadelphia Phillies hats back in the 70s and 80s. It wasn't like today, as a kid.
Right,
so
right.
it was very hard to get.
You could never watch a game. You could never buy a thing. No jerseys. No, right. It was like in a different world.
But I got to go to the vet to watch a game. I've been to Citizens Bank Park, and our fans, yes, we're a little different in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
But no, I've been a Phillies fan all my life. I can actually rattle off the 1980s lineup.
Oh, my God,
Still
yes.
to this day.
Yes. And even the 70s, you mentioned the 70s first. Those were good teams.
Well, fun fact, Steve Carlton, Cy Young winner for a terrible, I think they only won 30 games in 72, 71.
I want to say 10 and 27. I want to say 10 and 27 for St. Louis.
Yep.
Yeah,
I mean,
right?
Steve Carlton was, those guys were to me, Mike Schmidt, Greg Luzinski,
Right.
David Fry, Gary
Maddox.
Boa, Booney.
Right.
Trio.
Yeah.
But yeah, but those, it's fun. Baseball is one of those sports that, for a lot of people, I think they become a fan of a team for strange reasons.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you, Thank you, Joe. I have this wrong. 27 and 10, not 10 and 27. Carlton for the Phillies. What year do I want? 1970. He was 10 and 19. He didn't win the Cy Young, though. All right. Well, I'm glad to have this clarified, even if it was through a mistake. 1972 Phillies. His first year with the Phillies. 27 and 10. 41 starts, 30 complete games. 346 and a third innings. Jeez. Yeah. Carlton, lefty. Those Philly teams, I couldn't like them because I was Reds. And then Mets. I always hated Philadelphia. That has never actually changed. I've never liked the Philadelphia sports team at all. I've always disliked kind of all of them. tomorrow we'll do hated instead of liked. Today's love. Tomorrow we can do hated, because if I did hated, that's been more indelible for me. And Philadelphia teams just never, ever. I go there every year. I enjoy being there. I have friends there. They're normal people. They love sports. I love that, a town that loves its sports. But I just cannot get with the Phillies have been good the last few years. I hate it. It really makes me upset that when the Phillies are good, I'm not good. No offense to Joe, of course. That's his team. Not taking it out on him. There's nothing to do with him. Noah is next. Hi, Noah.
Hey, Mike. I just want to say first off about the old beverages. I've got a Sabres 20th anniversary Pepsi bottle that's tempting to pop open someday, and I've got a Bills Coca-Cola 2-liter from the Super Bowl years, neither of which I don't think would be good anymore. But would they fizz when you opened it? That is I got to say the Pepsi, the Sabres Pepsi, is in a glass bottle. The Coca-Cola Bills 2-liter is in a plastic 2-liter bottle, and it is completely caved in on itself.
Yeah.
Like it's very. Yeah. It does not have shape anymore.
No.
So, but to the point of today's topic, I'm truthfully not really much of a baseball fan ever. However, that changed during COVID. When the Blue Jays came here to Buffalo, suddenly I found myself very invested in the Buffalo Blue Jays.
Oh, it was the best.
Even got a couple of tickets to a few of the games, went out and bought some Blue Jays gear, and found myself watching them on TV just because they were here. So, this past summer we went up to Toronto and caught a game as well. And now I think the Blue Jays might be my team. I quite literally never watch baseball, but them being here during COVID was something special, I think.
I agree with that. I loved that so much. I can't even really believe that happened. It was like the only good thing about COVID was that the Blue Jays moved. It's just amazing, as such a baseball fan forever to sort of wake up in the morning or sit here in the afternoon and think about the Yankees are 15 minutes away. That was so good. I went to 10 games probably. Kind of wish it were more, but loved that. I loved how the Bisons and the Jays together, how wonderful was that for the Bisons, right? They get all this money poured into their ballpark, the facility and the field, everything that meant. And I loved that they redesigned the concourse to the extent that instead of restrooms, it would say washrooms, like it would in Canada. It would say washrooms. So it wasn't I that noticed that. Somebody else noticed that, told me. I think it might have been my brother-in-law who was here from Toronto. I don't know if that's right because the border was closed for a time there, but somebody else noticed that, and I just loved that they even went that far to turn restrooms into washrooms at the ballpark. Pat Malacaro, by the way, broadcaster for the Bisons, will join me in about 12 minutes to talk about their opener tomorrow. It looks like it could rain tomorrow, but hopefully won't. Let's go to Michael next. Hi, Michael.
Hi, how are you doing?
Good, thank you.
Okay, well, I'm gonna give you Cincinnati Reds is my favorite team, and when I was in 6th grade, I was in the library, and I picked up a book that was an autobiography of Johnny Bench.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, what made me a fan is you realize that Johnny Bench played for Buffalo back in the '60s when we had a minor league team.
Yes.
Okay, well, he was in a bus crash. Every player on the team except for him got killed.
Oof! Really?
Every player.
Like when? Is he as a child?
No, when he was in the minor leagues.
Not in Buffalo.
Yeah.
No, are you really? Are you sure about this? I've never heard this.
Well, look it up. It's a fact. It's an autobiography that was on. That's what made me a Cincinnati.
You're telling me the entire Buffalo Bisons team was killed in a bus crash except for Johnny Bench? Wouldn't like everybody know that?
Back in the 60s.
Whenever it happened, wouldn't everybody know that? I don't know. I have my doubts here.
Well, look it up. That's all I'm telling you.
Okay.
I read the autobiography. Read it.
Might want to read it over. I don't know. If he's right, I'm sorry. It just feels like something every sports fan would know that story, and I've just never heard that. But anyway, speaking of baseball, I am wearing a Padres visor today, one of the teams that has not been mentioned as a favorite team, the San Diego Padres. I have never been a fan of the Padres. I've got no story. The reason for the visor, and I have a collection because it's opening day. I just grabbed it, and I have it because every time I go to a park for the first time or a city to watch a game for the first time, I buy a visor if they have it. Some teams more disappointing in the visor department than others. Remember the Tigers when I went to Comerica Park for the first time? Their visor selection, they were like that plastic, almost like ladies' golf visor from the old days, just like almost unwearable. You'll never see me wearing the Tigers one, but most of them are like this, just cotton, comfortable. Saw San Diego against the Mets. There with my son, who was 10 months old, at Petco. And just like it is so much fun when you're at a major league ballpark, walking up for the game. Don't have a ticket. Just go to the box office. What have you got? He was so small that I only needed one ticket. And those days are over. One ticket, and you're buying a single, you can almost sit like anywhere. So we sat second row, third base dugout, and just, the feeling, right? I'm in San Diego with my son at a Mets game against the Padres. Santana pitched for the Mets. David Wright is like from me to you. And so special. That day is memorable, and I won't tell you the whole story, but for other reasons, in terms of like my life and my family. Very, very important day. He and I leave San Diego like the 7th inning or something. Didn't need to stay for the whole thing. He's so young. And in the car, put the game on in the car, and it's the day where the pitcher Galarraga for the Tigers is about to throw a perfect game, but there was a bad call on the last out at first, and so it wasn't a perfect game. I think Joyce was the umpire, called him safe, and so he lost his perfect game on that. That was the same day where I was at Petco to see the Padres. More baseball next. Pat Malacaro to preview the Bison season. After a break, Sal Capaccio joins me at 5. Mike Schopp here. This is WGR.
And running for Major League Baseball, 14 games are going to get played today. We already have plenty in action already. The Yankees currently lead Milwaukee 2-1 in the fifth. For the Yankees, Austin Wells and Anthony Volpe with the home runs. Toronto currently down 5-0 in the third against Baltimore. Atlanta also taking on the Mets today. Again, part of that 14-game swing we will have for opening day. The Bisons, though, their season will not get underway until tomorrow when they host Rochester at 2. But for more on the Bisons season, do stay tuned as voice of the Bisons, Pat Malacaro, will join the show next. For the Sabres, it is game night tonight. They are at home against Pittsburgh. Pre-game at 6 for a 7 p.m. puck drop. Signs are pointing to James Reimer getting the start in net, and Jason Zucker is going to be out of the lineup due to a family matter. And then college basketball gets going again today. The Sweet 16, 4 games this evening. Alabama versus BYU just after 7. Arizona versus Duke just after 9:30. Those will be able to be heard over on the Bet 1520 following the completion of UB women's round of 16 game against Southern Indiana in the NIT. The other 2 games are Maryland versus Florida at 7:30 and Arkansas versus Texas Tech just after 10 o'clock. And coverage of the NCAA Championship Tournament on WGR and the Bet 1520 is brought to you by Window Nation. For all your window needs, visit windownation.com. That's your Paddock Chevrolet Sports Headlines. Paddock Chevrolet celebrating 90 years of business. I'm Zach Jones for WGR Sports Radio 550.
O'Neal drives one the other way. That's headed out toward right field. He's done it again! The unstoppable opening day machine. Tyler O'Neal has homered for a 6th consecutive year on opening day.
Is that good? 6 years in a row on opening day? I mean, that's a streak. 6-0 now, Toronto losing to Baltimore. Not great. I mean, the season started like an hour ago. 6-0. Game's not over. 4th inning. The parent club of the Bisons trailing the Orioles on this opening day. By the way, the last caller with the Bisons death story, I haven't found it yet, but a couple people are tweeting that when Johnny Bench was in high school, there was an accident, and at varying accounts, but that there were fatalities in this accident. But you know, it was not when he played for the Bisons. I think he broke his thumb playing for the Bisons. Much, not good, but
it's not great.
Not fatal.
Correct.
Pat Malacaro joins us now. He'll be broadcasting Bisons games again this season. That's exciting. The opener is tomorrow. Pat, thanks for jumping on with me.
Happy to do it, Mike. And actually, the 2 Johnny Bench stories that relate to the Bisons, you're right. He did break his hand catching with the team in one of his first games in with the Bisons, and that's why he had his hand in front, and now he hit his hand behind. But also, he is the only player in professional baseball to hit a grand slam off of Jim Palmer, and that game was played in Hyde Park because several games had to be moved from Buffalo, and there's a funny story about that. Basically, Jim Palmer, this is the only time in his career he gave up a grand slam. It was at Johnny Bench here in Western New York up in Niagara Falls.
How about that? Was that at Sal Magley Stadium, or was it even that?
I believe it was at Hyde Park. It was called Hyde Park Stadium at the time.
Okay. And Palmer might have been in Rochester, pitching for Rochester?
Yes. Earl Weaver was the manager, I believe, and basically said, don't worry about this kid, just throw a pitch, and he did, and Bench hit it.
And Palmer never gave up a slam in his career after that, in Major League career. That is so good. That's a much better story than the whole team died in a bus crash. That is much better. Good for you, Pat. Bench was on with us once, and he talked about the injury and what he had his right hand behind his glove. Is that how he would do it?
Yes.
Okay.
And then he got hit by either a foul tip or just didn't catch it correctly, and that's why he eventually would put his hand behind his back. That wouldn't happen again.
Yeah, I can picture that. That's so good. So the Bisons this year, how does it look, Pat? I mean, Candell, the manager, I wasn't sort of aware that he's coming up on like some pretty good milestones as the Bisons manager.
Yeah, this is his 5th season with the team. He actually, if you're a Blue Jays fan, you may recall in 2022 he was promoted to the interim bench coach position when John Schneider was installed as the Blue Jay manager at the time. So really it'll be about 4.5 years if Casey, from the start of the season, manages all the way to the end. He's approaching 300 wins, which only one other manager in the modern era from 1985 until now has ever done. So he's in about 266, I believe, is the number for Casey right now. So he's really closing in on 300. And then Marty Brown, who's in the Buffalo Baseball Hall of Fame, has the record of 312 wins as a Bison manager over parts of 3 seasons. Or actually 4 seasons. He would be the next one on the list, the only one above him on the list. So Casey could get there this year if the Bisons even just play 500 baseball. He should get to that mark over 150 games.
Yeah, you would think. I guess maybe the only way he doesn't is if the Toronto thing goes so badly. Maybe they call him up there. But, yeah, you would think so. Marty Brown. So is Marty Brown the manager of the last championship team?
Yes, 2004, and then he was the manager again in 2005 when they lost to Indianapolis in 5 games. And also returned in the first year of the Blue Jay affiliation in 2013. He was back in affiliated baseball. He went over to Japan for a while and was managing the Blue Jays minor league system for a couple of years and just happened to be back in Buffalo again.
Okay. I was at least one of those playoff games in 04. I mentioned earlier today, came to just really get into the Cleveland team that when all those, something like 22 out of 25 of those guys had played for Buffalo.
It was the golden era of baseball here, at least in the modern era to me of Bison baseball. You think about championship corner out beyond left field. It was almost every single year. If the Bisons didn't win the division from 1997, the old American Association, going to the IL in 98, the International League, pretty much all the way through 2005, there's only 1 or 2 years that the Bisons did not make the playoffs, and that championship team between Grady Sizemore, Brandon Phillips, Johnny Peralta, I think Cliff Lee at one point was on that team. I mean, the pitching staff was loaded. You're right. I mean, there was just so much talent, and really we saw all that talent on display for about a 10-year window in the Indians affiliation. Hoping that the Bisons can get back to something like that here. Casey is the manager, was the last manager to manage a division winner. It was in 2021 when the team started the year in Trenton and finished the year here in Buffalo.
Right.
So hoping that we can get back to some of those glory days of seeing all those guys promoted to the big leagues. Kind of like, look, you know, when a team has injuries and things don't go your way, you see the prospects go up. That's kind of what we saw last year with the Bisons being promoted to Toronto, and some of those players will start here this year again because the Blue Jays made some offseason acquisitions and now are able to let those players develop more.
Right. Alan Roden is up there, and he is in the starting lineup today. Roden was excellent for Buffalo last year. This would be his major league debut today?
It is, and you talk about somebody that had a quick rise to the organizational ladder. He was actually college teammates with Will Robertson, who's an outfielder for the Bisons, into his 2nd season now. Robertson was drafted in 2019, and Roden was drafted just a couple of years ago, both out of Creighton, where they were college teammates. And the thing that John Schneider has mentioned a lot about Alan Roden and Ross Atkins is just his preparedness coming to the field. He struggled when he came up to AAA last year, hitting in the mid-200s. He made a subtle adjustment. He's one of those guys, so he grew up in the Milwaukee area. He has a batting stance similar to Craig Counsell, if you can remember that. He's pretty much straight up, and the bat is way behind his ear hole.
Yep.
And he made a subtle adjustment to change the way he stepped with his footing, and it really made a big difference. He was the player of the month here in the International League, hitting .354 in August. He was just tearing the cover off the ball. Really good outfielder. He can play any of the 3 outfield positions. Center field may be the toughest because he hasn't played there as much, but he can play either corner outfield. And the one thing that Will Robertson had told me when Alan Roden was going to join us, because I wanted to get the scouting report on him, he said as a freshman, now Will Robertson was a junior when he got drafted by the Blue Jays, but as a freshman when they were teammates, Alan Roden was in Will Robertson's lifting group, and he was the guy that could lift the most. He was the strongest it was with sophomores, juniors, even seniors, and even as a freshman, he's just that strong, and he's carried that all the way through.
Interesting. I talked to Mike Wilner a couple of days ago about him, and he said that he was studying to be a rocket scientist at Creighton. Roden.
Yeah, and that's one thing the Blue Jays have really focused in on a lot of players that are very smart and cerebral and are able to understand the strike zone. So it shouldn't be a surprise that someone like Roden is very intellectual, and even someone who's not going to start the year in Buffalo because he's on the injured list, Josh Kasevich, another one of those players that comes out of the University of Oregon, a second-round pick. Really good plate selection. Spencer Horwitz is a name that was here the last couple of seasons. These guys really figure out a way to make that an advantage for them, and I think that's one of the things the Blue Jays look for is the guys that can really focus in on and really make the pitchers work a little bit harder and work the strike and the count to their advantage.
With Pat Malacaro, the Bisons are scheduled to open tomorrow at 2. He'll be on the call. It's against Rochester. Hopefully the rain stays away. I've been into some of these pitching prospects over the years with Toronto. Manoah, Nate Pearson was interesting for a minute, Tiedemann, but injuries have kind of derailed all of them. Who's this year's version of that guy, if there is one?
Jake Bloss would be the name to look out for. He's currently ranked the number 6 prospect in the organization according to MLB Pipeline. He was part of the Yusei Kikuchi trade last year. Joey Loperfido will be in Buffalo as well. He was part of the trade, Will Wagner. But for Bloss, he's a guy that has 6-7 different pitches in his arsenal, but he throws hard. That's what makes him a little bit different. Played collegiately his final season at Georgetown, so you want to talk about another guy who is very cerebral on the field and especially on the mound. He made 8 starts with the Bisons at the end of last season after being acquired and struggled to maybe find a rhythm, but when he finally did, the results, the wins and losses weren't there, but you could tell the stuff was a lot better. He had really good spin rate. The breaking pitches were very crisp and sharp, so there's high expectations for Bloss. He made his major league debut with Houston last year, didn't get into a game with Toronto, but is definitely somebody on the radar that he can hit mid to upper 90s with the fastball, spot it very well, and then again with those other secondary pitches that he can work and really keep hitters guessing. I think big things are expected from him, and even tomorrow's starter Eric Lauer, who is a veteran who has actually opened a season before with San Diego in 2019. I think that's one of the nice things is you've got the young prospects in Bloss, but you also have some veterans who can help a guy like Jake Bloss along the way when he struggles. And that's another thing the Blue Jays have tried to do over the years of have those mentor type pitchers that understand I may go to the big leagues, I may not, but while I'm in AAA, I need to help some of the young guys along too, and I think that's one of the reasons why a guy like Eric Lauer was signed to a deal this winter.
You know, for me, I'm somewhere between casual and hardcore. I want there to be like one really cool prospect, you know, somebody that I'm expecting to see play in the majors, and then I can have my I saw him play when story. And then also I want a couple guys that I know who they are, right? Name recognition. And so you mentioned Lauer, and I think Christian Bethancourt would be this.
Yes, definitely. Several years in the big leagues. He's going to pretty much, I think, assume the starting catching role here in Buffalo. In the past couple of years, you look back, whether it be Danny Jansen, Alejandro Kirk for just a little bit of time, even Reese McGuire, there were some catching prospects that came through Buffalo. The last couple of years, it's been veterans that you may need that backup catcher role. Tyler Heineman, who is with the Blue Jays now, has been up and down in the organization a handful of times. So Christian Bethancourt, even an Ali Sanchez, who's had a little bit of big league experience, those guys will be here in Buffalo because if Tyler Heineman goes down with injury, struggles at all, I think you could see Christian Bethancourt, who really, I think, to me, everything I had heard coming out of spring training really endeared himself well to the organization and someone that everybody spoke highly of, so would not be a shock at all to see him in the big leagues.
The Blue Jays on the board in their opener against Baltimore on a 2-run Andres Jimenez home run here in the fourth, 6-2 Orioles. Pat, today I've been asking fans to hear their backstory on why whoever is their favorite team. What is yours?
I grew up an Oakland A's fan.
All right.
I always tell people I'm so old that
Careful.
As a kid growing up, playing t-ball, wiffle ball, whatever, even basketball in the summer, I really didn't spend a lot of time in the house in the summer at night. So really, I'd only watch baseball on Saturday afternoons, and because I'm a little bit older, I'm in my 40s, my first memories of baseball were the late 80s. And the Bash Brothers, the Oakland A's, were always good. They were always on TV. And I had a Jose Canseco poster hanging up in the basement at my parents' house. I mean, I was all in on the A's. We would drive to Cleveland to see them play at Old Municipal Stadium once a year. Just really enjoyed watching the A's as a kid growing up. So, the Moneyball story that was written by Michael Lewis and turned into a movie, something that I really followed as a at that time, like high school, early college years. But the A's were my team forever, and unfortunate the way that it ended in Oakland. I'd wished that it would end up different, maybe a new stadium, figure out a way to make it work. But talk about the Blue Jays playing here at Buffalo. I think the Oakland A's and even Tampa Bay to some extent, because of their situation, kind of took the blueprint that the Blue Jays and Bisons had from here at this ballpark and are going to make it work out in Sacramento in the A's case for the next couple of years.
Did you get to the Coliseum? I went to one game there.
I didn't. And really my only chance was going to be last year, and I decided, you know what, I don't want to be there for the final couple of games.
Yeah.
I don't know if I really want to be there for that,
I get that. Yeah, that would have been weird, if not ugly. I saw Toronto play out there. I guess it would have been 98 or 99. Whatever year it was that the Giants opened their stadium that they're still in. That was really cool. I was out there with a girlfriend, and the Giants had opened, it was Pac Bell originally, and they were talking about how incredible it was, and you could never get a ticket. The whole season was sold out, too bad. So we're out there, she's there for work, and I just called in the morning at the perfect time when it was the Expos, when the Expos players gave back their tickets that they weren't using. So not only did we get 2 for this Friday night game at the new stadium, it might have been the 5th or 10th game in the history of the stadium, but we would sit right behind the plate because that's where those are the good seats. The players are not using them. And I went to Oakland that week, so I got both boxes checked from Northern Carolina. Now I have to get to Sacramento. Apparently, that's going to count.
In San Francisco, I've been to that ballpark, and that's one of those stadiums. I mean, to me, that is my favorite because as much as I enjoy PNC Field PNC Park down in Pittsburgh, the backdrop is man-made. It's created by the skyline, the skyscrapers. In Northern California, you can't recreate what they have in the Bay there in San Francisco. So to me, for my money, I could sit in the upper deck in the last row at that stadium and be content for 81 games a year.
I hear that. Behind the plate? That view from behind the plate, yeah. Pittsburgh is the same in that way. I think the best view would be from home plate, but I like that point. Very good, Pat. Well, congrats on your success. Hoping for a good season here and a dry day tomorrow.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it. Looking forward to getting the broadcast underway with Duke McGuire starting at 1 over on the sister station, the Bet 1520.
All right. Best to Duke as well. Thanks, Pat.
Thank you.
Yeah, boy. Thinking about that trip now. San Fran the first time. Been there another time, maybe 2. But that was really amazing. I just remember, like I said, hearing about how you cannot get a ticket. That's too bad. And then I was lucky. I'm sure there are people that know exactly when, they've got somebody on the inside or something, exactly when certain tickets come available. It might have been 10:30 in the morning of the game, something like that. And yeah, we're good. We've got 30 seats. So lucky me. Sal Capaccio coming up at 5. He'll take a break from watching his Yankees here in their opener. They're up 2-1 on Milwaukee in the 6th. The Sabres host the Penguins tonight. Pregame at 6. This is Mike Schopp on WGR.
Listen up.
Sal coming up. We'll get back into some draft stuff from yesterday. But first, it is contest time. Be caller 5-716-221-4WGR. That's 4947 to win a pair of tickets to see Disturbed with Daughtry and Nothing More. KeyBank Center next Friday, April 4th, courtesy of Live Nation. Get your tickets at Ticketmaster.com. Thinking about the draft today because I do it every day. Abdul Carter, I saw, is not planning to work out at Penn State's Pro Day. Why should he? He's going top 3. Like he's probably, anyway, top 4. No real upside there. I think it goes like this. Ward to the Titans at 1. Kind of everybody's saying that now, so I'm not going to push back against that. And I think it's fine, you know. Maybe he'll be great. Maybe he'll be a franchise guy for Tennessee. There's enough reason to think that's possible. I think with Sanders, there just isn't the same upside, it seems, in the consensus analysis. So I don't think he goes to Cleveland or the Giants. Both teams could easily make an argument for it. But I think there's enough potential end of the first round, early second, whether these teams trade or just stay put, for somebody they could talk themselves into, tell themselves a story, as we say, for Jackson Dart, Jalen Milroe, Tyler Shugg, I guess that's how you say it, that cluster of quarterbacks. I mean, it's not a top 3 overall pick, but I kind of think the Browns and the Giants might decide they're better off waiting, and that's because of Carter and Travis Hunter, where you have 2 players. Hunter kind of by himself is 2 players, but you have guys that are like elite at other positions. So I think 2 and 3 should be Carter and Hunter. And after that, nobody needs a quarterback for a bit. Maybe the Jets could talk themselves into Sanders, maybe the Saints. We went through this yesterday a little bit with Chris Trapasso, but I would kind of guess that Sanders does slide. Because I think the Browns and the Giants might just feel like the other guys are too good to pass up versus what Sanders profiles as. And then, he could go anywhere if that happens. A trade up, like what happened with Justin Fields in his draft, where the Bears moved up with the Giants to pick him. A team in the middle could think very highly of him and make a big move. And that's great if you want to, if you get that call. Raiders at 6 or whoever it is. It's great. That's a great call to get. Like, all right, you're going to give me 2 firsts, 2 seconds, for this pick? Like, yeah, I'm totally in. Imagine wanting an offensive tackle in this draft and having a team make an offer like that to you for Sanders. Like, that's the dream. So that's my guess at the moment, is that he slides. I'm not sure Sal and I did much on him yesterday. Maybe here, or after the update anyway. Sal Capaccio will join me next. Tomorrow, Sam Panayotovich. The tournament resumes tonight. And also Sigmund Bloom will be on the show tomorrow. The Sabres host the Penguins tonight. Pregame at 6 with Paul Hamilton here on WGR.
SportsRadio550.com. This is a Paddock Chevrolet Sports Update.
Sabres game night tonight as Buffalo is at home against Pittsburgh. Pre-game coming up in about an hour at 6 for a 7 p.m. puck drop. We do know Jason Zucker is out of the lineup due to a family matter, while in net, all signs are pointing to James Reimer getting the start. Around the rest of the NHL, earlier this morning it was announced the Philadelphia Flyers are making a coaching change. John Tortorella being fired and Brad Shaw set to serve as interim. Tortorella falls just short of 3 full seasons in Philly, but would have missed the playoffs in all 3 of those seasons. It seemed to be the track they were on. In baseball, opening day is off and running. 14 games are going to get played today. Yankees currently lead Milwaukee 2-1 in the 6th. Austin Wells and Anthony Volpe with the home runs for the Yankees. Toronto down early 6-2 in the 5th against Baltimore. Mets on the road versus the Astros. Houston leads that game 1-0 in the 3rd. College basketball also back tonight. The Sweet 16 for the men. 4 games tonight. BYU versus Alabama just after 7. We'll get things going. Duke versus Arizona also at 9:30. Those games can be heard over on the Bet 1520 following the completion of UB women's round of 16 game against Southern Indiana over in the NIT. The other 2 games tonight, Maryland versus Florida at 7:30. Then Arkansas versus Texas Tech just after 10. And coverage of the NCAA Championship Tournament on WGR and the Bet 1520 is brought to you by Window Nation. For your window needs, visit windownation.com. That's your Paddock Chevrolet Sports Update. Paddock Chevrolet celebrating 90 years of business. I'm Zach Jones for WGR Sports Radio 550.
Well, I clearly want it both ways. I'm watching this at bat here just now in the Yankees-Brewers game. After a spring training where they use the automated balls and strikes, I'm like, I don't know if I need this. It's 162 games, 9 innings. Just, do we really need every ball or strike call to be right? Can't we just sort of live? Most of them are. Can't we just sort of live with it? But now it's the Yankees, and this Milwaukee guy comes up with the bases loaded. He batted 118 last year, and he gets hooked twice. 2 pitches outside that box. I'm like, oh, if only I had the robot ump for this at bat. Sorry, Sal. Sal's a Yankee fan. I guess it timed out okay. I was worried that this guy would still be batting here when you came on if you're watching the game. Like, oh, perfect timing, right? But Yanks get out of the inning, and we're okay here.
Yeah, me too. I actually have it in front of me watching it as I talk to you, and the same thing was happening. The third, what could have been the third strike, which the Yankees thought was a strike,
right,
might have been the best pitch of those 3. And I think they were all out of the zone, but actually that one was called a ball, and it might have been better than the other 2 that were called strikes, actually.
You can't blame the Yankees for thinking they would get it after the first 2 strike calls in the at-bat, but they didn't. So 2-1 Yanks, bottom of the 6th. Great that it's, sunny there, right? We get excited for opening day. Yanks were first game up, and you hate it when it's like, no, snowed out, something like that. Hopefully we get lucky tomorrow here.
It's going to be close to 80 on Saturday at Yankee Stadium. How about that? It's going to be, I think, in the high 50s here. They're going to be 20 degrees warmer at Yankee Stadium in the Bronx on Saturday. So that's the next game. They don't play tomorrow. That happens all the time for these early season games. They build in more off days early for the rainouts, even the snowouts, I guess, Mike, which reminded me the 96 opener was on the other day on Yes. And I remember that game. I remember watching it. It's Andy Pettitte, young pitcher for the Yankees, gets the opening day start, and he's literally starting against the Royals with the snow falling pretty hard around him. It was on TV the other day, and it was fun to watch.
Is that a Giambi home run to win it or something? One of those? Is that game? I'm not sure if it is. But.
Might have been. I don't remember that one specifically. I do. What was crazy to me was that's funny
later.
Actually.
That'd be later.
But I turn it on. I'm listening, and I'm watching, and it's John Sterling on the television call, right? And they have Rudy Giuliani in the booth with them, and they're talking about the potential new Yankee Stadium that needs to be built at some point. Now, remember, the new Yankee Stadium didn't get built to 2009, I think, right? So we're still a good, more than a decade from when it actually happened. I do not recall, and I did not know. There was a big push, in fact, from Sterling and Michael Kay, who were on the broadcast. There was a big push to put it on the west side of the city, in the what's called the West Side Yard, the rail yard.
Okay.
And I didn't know this. And there was going to be some big facility, and then they ultimately decided to put it across the street from where it is. And they go into this huge discussion, and if like you put yourself back in 1996, I would have come out of it thinking that's where the stadium's going the way they were talking about it, to be quite honest with you. It was crazy.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's great to have baseball back, and again, rain possible tomorrow, but we'll see with the Bisons game, which is scheduled for 2:00. Earlier, speaking of baseball, Sal, we had listeners call in with why their favorite team is their favorite team. Because I've wondered, if maybe Buffalo is more diverse